Why would Princess Diana choose to write to Princess Anne during the final weeks of her life? The answer was not immediately clear, but as he stood in the silence of Althorp House, memories from the difficult? Let's find out. The secret behind Diana's decision. As Charles Spencer continued looking at the letter in his hands, one question kept echoing through his mind. The difficult summer of 1997 began returning with remarkable clarity. Piece by piece, they painted a picture that was very different from the one the public had believed for so many years. During those final months, Diana was living under enormous pressure. Although millions around the world admired her, her private life had become increasingly lonely and uncertain. Cameras followed her every move, newspapers eagerly searched for new stories, and she often felt as though without attracting attention. She did not explain, only enough to make him understand that the matter could not wait. Not long afterward, William arrived. He had driven himself, leaving behind the usual royal convoy, sensing that whatever awaited him was deeply personal. The moment he stepped into the room, for the entire world, Anne and Diana's brother agreed that Diana's message deserved to be shared with the world. But would they carry out the plan alone? If not, who would they bring into such an important decision? And would he support their plan or disagree with it? Let's uncover. He noticed the serious expressions on the faces of his aunt and uncle. Neither of them spoke right away. The silence alone told him that something extraordinary had happened. Anne slowly lifted the aged, cream-colored envelope and placed the carefully unfolded letter into William's hands. Cover the intriguing details. The discovery that finalizes Diana's wish. Before Princess Anne and Charles Spencer could put their remarkable plan into motion, there was one person who needed to see the letter above everyone else. Anne had already sent a discreet message through a secure private channel, asking Prince William to come immediately until the very end. She had been thinking about his future. Anne quietly broke the silence, confirming that she had honored Diana's trust for all those years. She had remained watchful. She could already see gathering around them. William lowered the letter, deeply moved by what he had just read. For the first time, he fully understood that his mother's fight had never ended with her own struggles. Protected William and Harry whenever she could, and never forgotten the promise she had silently carried. With Charles standing beside them, the three family members reached the same conclusion. She believed Anne possessed a rare strength that few others inside the family had. More importantly, she trusted Anne to stand firm when it mattered most. She believed Anne would continue protecting her sons from the pressures. Anne's years of experience inside the royal household made her notice dangers that others could easily overlook. A troubling thought crossed her mind, and she wasted no time sharing it. She quietly asked Charles a simple question. Had anyone else seen the letter before he left Althorp House? The question immediately sent Charles as Princess Anne's expression suddenly changed. Until that moment, both she and Charles Spencer had been focused entirely on the remarkable discovery lying before them. But Anne's thoughts racing back to the previous afternoon. He remembered the exact moment the old envelope slipped from the pages of the book and landed on the library floor. More importantly, he remembered the arrival of the estate's senior archivist. Although the meeting had lasted only a few moments, the archivist had clearly noticed the cream-colored envelope before Charles managed to put it away. At the time, the encounter had seemed completely harmless. Now it felt far more significant. As Charles recalled every detail, the seriousness of the situation became impossible to ignore. The archivist was connected to official historical preservation work, enormous pressure. She had challenged influential royal aides when they pushed too hard, refused to let them intimidate Diana, and used her own authority to protect her whenever she believed the situation had gone too far. Anne understood how the royal institution worked better than almost anyone else, and although she rarely showed emotion in public, she had never stopped paying attention to what Diana was going through. One memory stood out above all the others. During a particularly tense moment, As Anne lowered the letter, she finally spoke the truth she had carried in silence for so many years. She had never hated Diana. What she hated was watching an extraordinary woman slowly. Anne had pulled Diana aside and offered a simple but unforgettable piece of advice. She quietly told her never to let those determined to control her see her weakness, because once they believed they had broken her spirit, they would only push harder. It was advice born from years of personal experience inside one of the world's most demanding institutions. Often suggested the two women were distant, uncomfortable around each other, and unable to build any real friendship. Many people accepted that version of events without question. Anne was described as cold, reserved, and had ever faced, with growing tension behind closed doors and relentless public attention outside them. For years, newspapers had painted a simple picture of the relationship between Diana and Anne. Headlines were unsympathetic, while Diana was portrayed as isolated and alone. But as Anne continued reading the letter, it became painfully clear that the truth had been far more complicated than anyone outside the palace had ever known. Behind closed doors, Anne had quietly stepped in more than once when Diana found herself under each line seemed to pull her deeper into a chapter of royal history she had tried hard to leave behind. The quiet room around her faded as her mind returned to Balmoral during the painful years when the marriage between King Charles, then the Prince of Wales, and Princess Diana was falling apart. It had been one of the most difficult periods the royal family that had remained untouched for decades. It looked no different from countless other antique volumes surrounding it, yet hidden inside was a secret that had quietly survived the passage of time. As Charles gently pulled the book from the shelf, something unexpected happened. A thick, cream-colored envelope slipped from deep within the bind. Please subscribe. The letter that exposed a royal secret. Charles Spencer never imagined that what began as a routine inspection inside the historic Althorp House would lead him to one of the most astonishing discoveries of his life. The quiet estate had witnessed centuries of family history, but nothing could have prepared him for what was waiting among its forgotten shelves. As he carefully reviewed part of the estate's vast library collection, his attention fell on an old, well-worn copy of John Donne's Holy Sonnets, a book. What do you think? What did Princess Diana's lost letter to Princess Anne really reveal, and why was it hidden for so many years? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. To help us uncover more hidden royal stories, everything that mattered to Diana long before discovering the letter addressed to Princess Anne. But why did Diana choose Anne above every other member of the royal family? Could there be a reason that no one had fully understood? Nearly 3 decades later, that unforgettable promise suddenly returned to him unexpectedly. Standing alone inside the peaceful library at Althorp House, Charles found himself holding Princess Diana of royal history hidden for 25 years. To Charles, it felt like one final opportunity to keep the promise he had made beside Diana's coffin and honor the trust she had placed in those she loved most. Charles had made a vow to protect everyone's long-lost letter addressed to Princess Anne. As he looked at his sister's familiar handwriting, memories of that emotional day inside Westminster Abbey came rushing back with remarkable clarity. The letter was no longer simply a forgotten piece. He remembered a tense gathering at Sandringham years earlier. During an uncomfortable exchange, Anne had calmly silenced an overbearing courtier with quiet confidence and unquestionable authority. Diana had watched the moment closely, seeing beyond Anne's But what exactly did the letter say? And how urgently did Diana want her wishes to be carried out? Now let's explore Diana's forgotten letter. The words inside. Diana's letter. Charles Spencer stared at the sealed envelope for what felt like an eternity. Every possessed a rare kind of strength. She needed someone who understood the royal household from the inside, someone respected enough to stand firm against powerful figures when it truly mattered. Diana believed Anne could be that person. Then Charles reserved public image. She recognized a woman who could not easily be intimidated. At last, Charles understood why Diana had trusted Anne with the message hidden inside her long-forgotten letter. According to the letter, Diana believed Anne was the one member of the royal family who could carry out her wishes without fear of compromise. He promised they would do everything within their power to protect Prince William and Prince Harry and help them grow with the kindness, compassion, warmth, and independence their mother had worked so hard to teach them. He vowed that their lives would never be shaped only by royal expectations, duty, and tradition, but also by the humanity Diana had always wanted them to keep. Those powerful words became one of the defining moments of Charles Spencer's life and remained closely tied to Diana's enduring legacy. Constant public pressure. But it was his promise that truly captured the world's attention. Standing before the royal family and millions of viewers watching across the globe, Charles made a heartfelt pledge on behalf of Diana's family. Speaking from the heart, Charles criticized the relentless media attention that had followed Diana throughout her life, arguing that the endless pursuit of photographs and headlines had placed an unbearable burden on her. His words reflected the pain of a family member who had watched someone he loved live under. As royal experts and supporters race to uncover the truth, one question continues to grow louder. What did Diana's lost letter really reveal, and why has it remained hidden for so long? So, by unveiling what many believe is a long-forgotten letter addressed to Princess Anne. The unexpected discovery has generated intense speculation about the private bond between two remarkable royal women and the hidden emotions Diana never shared publicly.
Tissues and crying, and then I thought, look, I've got to get a grip here and do something useful for Diana, and I decided the first thing that needed to be done was to find somebody to write and deliver the eulogy.
In a stunning revelation that has captivated the entire United Kingdom, Charles Spencer has brought renewed attention to Princess Diana's legacy of that historic day. It was far more than a tribute to his beloved sister. It was an emotional message filled with love, sorrow, and determination. Speaking of his heartbreaking death on August 31, 1997. As the world struggled to process the loss of the people's princess, Charles found himself standing before millions at her funeral and unexpectedly became one of Britain's most closely watched public figures. Although he had spent much of his life away from the constant spotlight that surrounded his famous sister, everything changed after Diana's Westminster Abbey, carrying not only the grief of a devastated brother, but also the hopes of those who believed Diana deserved justice and compassion. His funeral speech quickly became one of the most unforgettable moments and landed softly on the floor. Curious, he bent down to pick it up. The paper had been remarkably preserved, protected for 25 years inside the old poetry book. On the back was a deep crimson wax seal that remained completely intact, showing that no one had ever opened it. Whatever message was hidden inside had remained locked away since the day it was written. Then Charles turned the envelope over, and everything changed. The elegant, familiar handwriting instantly caught his eye. There was no mistaking it. It belonged to his sister, Princess Diana. For a brief moment, memories of her rushed back with overwhelming force. He expected the letter to be addressed to one of her sons, Prince William or Prince Harry. Perhaps it was meant for a close friend, a trusted advisor, or even a member of her own family. Instead, the name written across the front left him completely speechless. The letter was addressed to Princess Anne. Charles could hardly believe what he was seeing. For years, newspapers, television programs, it was one of the monarchy's most important public events, attended by senior members of the royal family and watched by journalists from around the world. Millions of people would be following the live broadcast. Anne believed that was exactly where Diana's letter belonged, before it disappeared again. Once more, Anne shook her head. She knew how quickly headlines could distort even the most important stories. Endless debates, sensational reporting, and legal challenges could bury Diana's true message before the public ever understood it. Instead, Anne proposed something neither Charles nor anyone else could have imagined. Within hours, the annual Order of the Garter ceremony at St. George's Chapel would begin. If its contents were revealed before the world's cameras, no private meeting, official order, or last-minute intervention could quietly make it disappear. For the first time since the letter had been discovered, Charles realized they were no longer simply protecting Diana's final words. They were preparing to reveal them before every conversation could somehow find its way into the headlines. Trust became a rare and precious thing. Even among people closest to her, Diana worried that private information might be leaking beyond her control. The constant attention left her emotionally exhausted, and she rarely felt completely safe or truly at peace. Yet despite everything she was facing, Diana's greatest concern was never herself. Her thoughts were always drawn back to Prince William and Prince Harry. More than public criticism or endless media attention, she feared the pressures of royal life would slowly shape the future of her sons. She wanted them to grow into compassionate, thoughtful, and independent young men without losing the warmth and humanity she had worked so hard to teach them. Protecting them became her highest priority. As these memories resurfaced, Charles began to understand the letter in an entirely new way. Diana had not written to Anne because she wanted comfort or reassurance. She had reached out because she believed Anne would become the center of a painful public spectacle that seemed determined to destroy her, while so few people truly understood what she was enduring. Beyond admitting to Charles that she never hated Diana, what shocking revelation did Princess Anne make after reading Diana's letter? Could the letter be connected to events that unfolded even after years of public pressure without showing much emotion seemed visibly shaken? Charles Spencer immediately sensed that she had come across something far more serious than either of them had expected. Anne slowly looked up from the letter. After Diana's death? Let's find out. The secret Diana hid inside her letter. Everything changed the moment Princess Anne reached one particular part of Diana's letter. Until then, she had been quietly reading through the handwritten pages, carefully taking in every word. But as her eyes moved farther down the page, her expression suddenly changed. The calm, controlled woman who had faced together in a way they never had before. What had once seemed like scattered concerns now appeared to form part of a much larger and more troubling picture. For the first time, Charles saw a possible link between Diana's private warnings, her determination to protect William, and the mysterious events, deeper royal mystery that had remained hidden behind palace walls for decades. Anne made a revelation that supported the concerns Diana had raised in her letter. But could the tragic car crash in Paris? Charles could hardly believe the connection that was unfolding before him. His mind raced as memories of Diana's fears, her growing sense of isolation, and the desperate tone of the letter suddenly began to fit surrounding the final days of her life. Whether coincidence or something more, the discovery convinced him that his sister had recognized dangers that few others understood. The letter no longer felt like a personal message alone. It had become a powerful piece of a much deeper. Taking a slow, steady breath, Charles carefully broke the deep crimson wax seal and unfolded the aged pages inside. From the very first lines, he realized this was unlike anything he had expected. Diana's words carried a instinct told him that once the wax seal was broken, there would be no turning back. The letter had remained hidden for 25 years, untouched by time and unseen by anyone. Whatever Princess Diana had chosen to write during the final weeks of her life had stayed locked away, waiting for this very moment's future. Her greatest fear was that they would slowly change the compassionate child she had raised, taking away his kindness, independence, and empathy to make him fit a stricter royal image. As Charles continued reading, another remarkable truth became impossible to ignore. Diana's sense of urgency, not personal sorrow. She was not seeking sympathy or writing about her own pain. Instead, every line revealed the heart of a worried mother determined to protect her sons. She expressed deep concerns about powerful figures within the royal household whom she believed were trying to influence William's silence. The grief she had carried alone and the memories she had buried so deeply slowly surfaced once again. Charles watched quietly, realizing he was witnessing something reserved and almost impossible to read, suddenly seemed very different. As she carefully lifted the letter into her hands, her composure began to weaken. The years of sleep-protected envelope that had remained hidden for 25 years. When Anne entered the room, Charles gently placed the letter before her. For a brief moment, she simply looked at it without speaking. Then her eyes settled on the handwriting. She recognized it immediately. The familiar writing transported her back to a time filled with painful memories, difficult choices, and emotions she had spent decades keeping hidden behind a calm public image. The Princess Anne the world believed it knew, described as the men in grey, learned about the letter, they would likely move without delay. An urgent historical inspection could easily be arranged under perfectly ordinary administrative procedures, once linked to royal estates. If word of the letter had already reached the wrong people, its discovery might no longer be a private matter. Anne understood how quickly information could travel through official palace channels, especially when it involved documents connected to Princess Diana. She warned Charles that if the influential figures Diana had once discussed or anyone else ever had the chance to read it, before either of them could decide what to do next, the silence inside Anne's study was suddenly broken. An encrypted red telephone resting on a nearby desk began to ring. Neither of them moved. The sharp sound inside Althorp, the letter could be taken into official custody, classified as sensitive royal material, and locked away from public view forever. Diana's final message could disappear once again before it seemed safer than any other. He suggested destroying the letter before anyone could take it away. In his mind, burning the pages would prevent them from falling into the wrong hands. It would also stop anyone from twisting Diana's words, or lock. Diana had carefully hidden it for a reason, preserving her words until the right moment arrived. Protected inside an old book beneath an untouched wax seal, the letter had survived for decades because Diana wanted her message to be discovered, not erased. To Anne, it was a truth waiting to be heard. Anne believed they owed Diana far more than silence. Charles then suggested sharing the letter with trusted newspapers, hoping responsible journalists might reveal its contents, keeping them away forever under official secrecy. Although painful, he believed losing the letter might be better than allowing it to be used against the very people Diana had hoped to protect. Princess Anne firmly rejected Charles's suggestion, making it clear that destroying the letter was never an option. She believed Anna's funeral in 1997. It was not a call he ever expected to make again, yet the discovery of the forgotten letter left him with no other choice. He asked for an immediate and completely private meeting with Princess Anne, refusing to explain anything over the telephone except one detail that instantly changed everything. Understood, twisted, or reduced to endless public speculation. Charles believed his sister deserved better than that. More importantly, he believed her message needed to reach the one person she had trusted enough to write it for in the first place. Without wasting any time, Charles reached for a private communication line connected to Buckingham Palace, one that had remained silent since the difficult days following Diana. He told them he was holding a sealed letter written by Princess Diana. The following morning, Charles traveled to Gatcombe Park, Princess Anne's peaceful country home. The atmosphere felt unusually quiet as he arrived, carrying the careful watch over Diana's sons. It was not the path people expected, but Anne believed it gave her the best chance of protecting William and Harry during the years when they needed stability most. As Charles listened, another memory suddenly came rushing back. Only group Diana privately called the Men in Grey, she believed she would have been pushed aside, her voice dismissed, and perhaps most importantly, her access to Prince William and Prince Harry taken away. That was a risk she simply could not afford to take. Instead, Anne made a difficult choice that very few people ever understood. Rather than fighting from the outside, she stayed within the royal system. She accepted the public image of being reserved, distant, and emotionally guarded, if it meant remaining close enough to quietly watch. Weeks after Diana's funeral, one senior courtier had unexpectedly disappeared from William's household. At the time, almost nobody questioned the quiet transfer. Would it reopen old wounds? Or would it instead reveal the hidden bond between the two women? Let's uncover the intriguing details. The private meeting. Charles carefully read the details of his late sister's letter and understood the weight of the responsibility it carried. But would he have the courage to deliver the letter to the woman it was addressed to? If he did, written by Diana herself. In that unforgettable moment, Charles became convinced that his sister had recognized a dangerous plan taking shape long before the tragedy in Paris, and that her letter was never simply a private message. It was a desperate attempt to protect her sons before time ran out. Charles Spencer knew almost immediately that the letter could never be treated like an ordinary historical discovery. Its contents were far too personal, far too important, and far too powerful to become another sensational newspaper headline. If it reached the media first, there was every chance that Diana's final words would be misunderstood. If powerful figures inside the royal institution were already aware that Diana's hidden letter had been found, they had very little time left to decide what to do next. Charles reacted first. The pressure of the moment overwhelmed him, and one solution seemed. But who was calling? And what plan would Anne and Charles put in place to protect Diana's final wishes? Now, let's uncover the extraordinary plan. The risky decision. The ringing telephone left both Charles Spencer and Princess Anne with the same troubling realization. The window to act was quickly closing. Sensitive matters. Whoever was calling already sensed that something important had changed, and with every passing second, it became clear that time was quickly running out. As Anne and Charles Spencer feared that the contents of Diana's letter might be exposed, a mysterious phone call suddenly suggested that danger was closing in, echoed through the room, carrying a sense of urgency neither could ignore. Anne looked toward the telephone with quiet concern. She knew that line was used only for the most sensitive for 25 years and ensure her voice would finally be heard. So, what do you think about Diana's letter? Was she unfairly targeted before and after her death? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. The forgotten letter could no longer remain hidden. Together, they prepared to carry Diana's final message into the very heart of the monarchy. Determined to reveal what they believed had remained buried for a brief moment, he simply stared at the familiar handwriting. It had been almost 25 years since he had seen his mother's words written across a page. Gently, he began to read. As his eyes moved from one line to the next, the room fell completely. Diana was not writing out of fear for herself.